Hello, class, and thank you for watching. This is homework help with solving inequalities. Again, disclaimer as usual on every video is that you make sure that you have this completed and are simply just checking your answers. Again, this is again just for you to check your answers and verify that you didn't make any careless mistakes and you're actually understanding how to do these problems. Okay. So now here on the first one, what we want to do again, the instructions are to draw a graph of each inequality and write the solution in interval notation. So for this one, we want all the values of v that are less than 3. Well, 3 is located here, so we would put a circle over there. But since we also want to equal it to 3, we're going to use a close dot, okay? Now, all the numbers less than that are going to be to the left. Now, as an interval notation, what that implies means is that we're going to go from negative infinity, that we're going to go all the way down, okay, and continue going from negative infinity, and then stop at this point of 3. But since we're also going to include 3 because of the closed circle, we're going to use brackets in that situation. Now for number 2, the same situation, we're going to now start at negative 3, but because again it's going to equal to that, let me just zoom in a little bit more. It's going to equal to that. We're going to close this circle, use a complete circle, and then go to the right since we want the numbers that are greater than that value. So negative 2, negative 1, 0, and so on. As an interval, that means that our starting point would be negative 3 because that's the lowest point, and we're going to go all the way to infinity. We're never going to stop. Okay, and because we never reach infinity, we're going to use parentheses on that one there. Okay, so let's move on to the next ones over here. Here, we want to solve each inequality, graph its solution, and write the solution in interval notation. So let me write v plus 6 is less than negative 12 down here, and let's solve it. So for this one, it's a simple one-step problem. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and v is going to be greater than negative 18. So we're going to put an open circle on negative 18, and all the numbers greater than negative 18 are to the right. So as an interval notation, again, looking at this right here, our lowest point of our solutions is negative 18, and we're going to the right. So we're going to go all the way to positive infinity. So we should use not brackets, I'm sorry about that. We should be using parentheses because we're not going to include negative 18. So that right there would be the solution. For number 4, Vx minus 15 is less than 1. We're going to add 15 to both sides, and x is less than 16. So we would have again an open circle because there's no equal sign, it would be open, and we will look for the values less than. So we point that again to the left. So as an interval notation, again, looking at this, we're going to go all the way to negative infinity. The lowest possible number we can reach is negative infinity, and the highest possible number is going to be that endpoint of 16. And we're going to use parentheses on both of them because, well, here it's an open circle, so parentheses, and we never reach negative infinity. We're just trying to keep on going and going and going, so that's never going to include it. So we use parentheses for that as well. For number 5, we have that 12x is less than or equal to 180. So we're going to divide by 12. And let me do some mental math here. Here we're 180. Let's see, 180 divided by 12. No, 10, no, 15. Yes, 15. X would be less than or equal to 15. So we are going to put a closed circle because this one actually has an equal sign. So that means 15 gets included, and we're looking for the values that are less than. So that's going to be all the numbers to the left. So as an interval, that means that we're going to go from negative infinity all the way to 15. And since we're going to include 15, we're going to now use a bracket instead of parentheses. Now for number 6, we have negative 4r is less than 72. So we're going to divide 72 by negative 4. Negative 4, sorry, negative 4, okay? So R, because we're dividing by a negative value, this inequality right here is going to flip. So it's going to be greater than a negative 18. So we're going to put an open circle because it doesn't have an equal sign. So that's a big open circle. And all the numbers greater than negative 18 are the numbers to the right. So it look like that. So thus at an interval, you look at the graph, the lowest possible number we can reach on this graph is going to be negative 18. So we'll start with that. And because it's open, we'll use parentheses. And we're going to go all the way to positive infinity. All right, let's go to the back page. Here, we're still doing the same things, but they aren't, I'm not providing any more graphs for you, all right? So you're going to draw the graphs ourselves. So for this one right here, we'll begin by two options. We could either divide by negative 5 or distribute it. I'm going to decide to distribute first, okay? So I'm going to distribute this, and we're going to get negative 5n plus 40 is greater than negative 20. Now I can do this because this is not absolute value. Remember on the absolute value lesson, I told you we couldn't distribute. We had to actually divide. Here, I could distribute because of the parentheses. The parentheses do let me distribute. So here now continuing on, we would then subtract 40 from both sides, and negative 5n would be less than negative 60. We divide by negative 5, and n would be greater than, because we're dividing by a negative. All right, you see right there, this inequality is going to flip. So negative 60 divided by negative 12, that's equal to, I'm sorry, negative 60 divided by negative 5 is positive 12. All right, so we end up with the following as a number line. All right, so here I'm just going to put 12, okay, just start right there, and I'm going to put an open circle, and since we all the numbers to the right because we want all the numbers greater than. And thus as an interval, that means that 12 would be the smallest number, and we will go all the way to infinity, okay? No, I'm sorry, we need to use parentheses because we are not including 12, okay? So that's gonna put parentheses, and there it goes. All right, so let's move on to number 8. For number 8, we will start by adding 1 to both sides, and negative 6m would be less than negative 72. And dividing 72 by negative 6, m is greater than, again, notice what I did again, I'm dividing by negative 6, so I'm going to flip this inequality. I get positive 12. So on a number line, it's basically the exact same number line as this one right here, okay? So we have an open circle above 12. All the numbers greater than 12 are going to be to the right, 13, 14, and so on. So our interval is going to be a parentheses where we start at 12 and we go all the way to infinity. Here we would add 3 to both sides. 4n is less than 24. We divide by 4, and n is less than 6. So on our number line, yes, no equal sign. We would, okay, and we want all the numbers less than, so that's 5, 4, and so on. So that's everything to the left. So in our interval, since we're looking at going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, and so on, all the way to the left, we're going to go all the way to negative infinity. The lowest possible number we can reach is negative infinity, and the highest possible number we can reach in our interval is going to be 6. And because we're not going to include 6, like I mentioned before, we're going to use parentheses for that. And now for number 10. For number 10, we're going to distribute, instead of dividing both sides by negative 10, I'm going to distribute the negative 10 so we end up with 20 minus 10v is greater than negative 90. Subtracting 20 from both sides, that reduces, again, that cancels out those two operations, and negative 10v is greater than negative 110. We divide by negative 10, and because we divide by negative 10, v is less than positive 11, because two negatives, a negative divided by a negative is positive 11. So here on our number line, putting 11 where all the numbers less than 11, so that would be again all the numbers to the left, like 10, 9, 8, and so on, okay? So the lowest possible number that we can, on our interval, the lowest possible number we can get is negative infinity, and the highest possible number is 11. Okay, now remember our intervals always go from least to greatest, the smallest number to the highest number. So for the last two problems, this here, to do this one right here, we would have to start by first adding the 3 on this one, and x divided by 4 is less than or equal to negative 3. And we are now going to multiply both sides by 4. That way these two operations cancel each other out. And we end up with negative 12. Now, even though I did end up with a negative value, I did not switch this inequality because I am multiplying by a positive, okay? Not by a negative. That's the only time I have to switch them, whenever I'm dividing or multiplying by a negative. In this case, I'm not doing that, so I'm not going to change that inequality, okay? So I'm going to leave it as such. So on our number line, we'll put negative 12 there. Remember, all the numbers greater than, again, like 0 would be to the right, negative 13 would be to the left, and we want all the numbers that are less than that. So we would put a closed circle because of the equal sign, and other numbers to the left are less. So as an interval, our lowest possible number is negative infinity, our highest possible number is negative 12, and we would finally use brackets on that one because we're going to include negative 12. And that finally brings us to the last one. So on the last one, pretty much the exact same thing. The only difference is that we're not using 1. Start by adding 1 to both sides. So this is going to equal to 0. We're going to multiply both sides by 9. And it's pretty easy. X is going to be greater than or equal to 0. So on the number line, we would have 0. We would use a closed circle because of the equal sign. The numbers to the right are all the numbers greater than, okay, and so on. So on the interval, because of the equal sign, the closed circle, we would start with brackets, and the smallest possible number is 0. And because we're going all the way to infinity, the biggest number would be infinity. Now notice that on every single one of the examples, the infinity always use parentheses, okay? So there you go. There's your answer for the last one. Now again, just as usual, like I remind you, make sure that you have completed these objectives for you to try them. Check your answers. Again, I'm posting these again for your benefit, so you could check your answers. Make sure that you have everything correct and you could earn a good grade on your homework assignments. But again, thank you for watching and have a good day.